Welcome, dearly beloved anointed ones. Consider carefully whose gaze lingers on your essence, whose hands cradle your image. Not every reflection holds a memory. Some serve as conduits whispering invitations to shadows. Let that truth resonate. What if someone masked in familiarity, their smile, a carefully crafted deception, captured your likeness, only to descend into the abyss, offering it to a darkness that dwells beyond our comprehension? Not symbolically, but in stark reality. And what if that entity summoned from the infernal depths paused its gaze fixed upon your image and then recoiled, refusing the infernal request? Something profound transpired that night, exceeding their calculated expectations. It wasn't a forgotten incantation or a mispronounced ancient word. It was your very being imprinted on that image that instilled dread in a creature born from the heart of hell. Spiritual truth. In ancient occult practices, a photograph transcends its mundane form. It becomes a spiritual nexus, a key capable of summoning, binding, manipulating, or even shattering a person's life force. But here's where their calculations crumbled. Your image, though printed on earthly material, resonates with a celestial fire in the unseen realm. And let's be frank, did they genuinely believe they could plunge your picture into some grotesque concoction, mutter a few forgotten syllables, and extinguish a beacon of divine light? This is not fantasy. This is a divine orchestration. Now they stand petrified, realizing that the very demon they sought to employ harbors a reverence for you that dwarfs its regard for them. Prepare to unveil the events that unfolded when your image entered that spectral space, and why even the denizens of hell were compelled to acknowledge your presence. Embrace this truth, chosen one. You were not merely protected, but deemed too potent to violate. Let's delve into the heart of this revelation. Number 1. The devil rejected the assignment because your image pulsed with the unmistakable resonance of divine grace. They delivered your photograph anticipating an easy victory. In their constricted worldview, it was a simple ritual, a shortcut to silence, impede, drain, or utterly destroy you. But they failed to foresee the resistance emanating from the very depths of hell. The devil scrutinized your image and retreated not out of compassion, not due to a flawed ritual, but because even darkness recognizes its limitations when confronted with the boundless might of the divine. They failed to comprehend that your image carries an inscription in the spiritual dimension, a seal declaring, "This one belongs to God." Invisible to mortal eyes, it resounds with undeniable clarity in the supernatural realm. This mark renders you impervious to malevolent intent in certain dimensions, and even demons are compelled to adhere to celestial decrees. They saw your image and recognized it as inviolable. They saw spiritual dominion. They witnessed the legal sanctions decreed by heaven, and in that realm even demons are bound by celestial jurisprudence. They sought obedience from the summoned entity, but encountered hesitation, bewilderment, and ultimately refusal, because that which God has consecrated cannot be cursed. And certainly that which has been forged in the crucible of suffering, isolation, and spiritual warfare cannot be destroyed. The enemy perceived what they disregarded. You are not simply protected, but anointed a distinction of profound significance. They presumed the photograph granted them power, but it only unveiled their ignorance. They attempted to manipulate the spiritual without understanding its inviolable laws. They underestimated the weight of your essence. To them, you are merely a person with untapped potential. But in the spirit realm, you are a formidable instrument honed by trials and blessed by the hand of the Almighty. You have weathered storms they cannot even fathom. You have been sustained by forces they deny exist. The devil rejected the assignment, understanding that tampering with God's elect would unleash devastating consequences. This was not born of fear, but of wisdom. It recognized that harming you transcended mere disobedience. It bordered on annihilation. Now they are paralyzed with disbelief as the entity they entrusted to your destruction examined your image and recoiled, not because of their actions, but because of your inherent being. Number 2, they imagined a photograph could circumvent divine authority. They foolishly believed that seizing your image, igniting candles, and chanting incantations could supersede the sovereignty of God over your destiny. They failed to grasp that the spiritual realm operates under principles far removed from fictional narratives or the deceptive counsel of dark practitioners. A structured hierarchy exists even in darkness, and the supreme law is this: divine jurisdiction reigns supreme. They mistakenly believed possessing your image granted them control akin to holding a key to your soul. In reality, they were grasping an object they lacked authorization to touch. That photograph was merely a trigger, not a permission slip. God never sanctioned their intrusion. Consequently, even though they believed they were operating with power, they were committing spiritual trespass, which carries a dire cost in the unseen realm. They approached it as a formula, believing your life could be extinguished through a series of calculated steps. But your life is not a formula. It is a divinely ordained covenant. Heaven inscribed your name upon a timeline of purpose, protection, and precise timing. Therefore, when they attempted to bypass all of this by dragging your photograph into a demonic process, the entire endeavor imploded, not because it was fraudulent, but because heaven erected an impenetrable barrier. Some of them even felt anger and confusion. Why did it fail? Why did you not succumb? Why did your finances not collapse, your health not deteriorate, your mind not shatter? Because the ritual was not only incomplete but unauthorized. They neglected to consider the will of God, which decreed access denied. That photograph became evidence against them, not a weapon against you. They did not gain power. They triggered repercussions. They awakened something they could not contain, and now they are left in disarray, questioning why their world is collapsing, unaware that they dared to tamper with something sacred, attempting to rewrite a destiny that was never theirs to alter. They sought control from the devil, but instead they were exposed. Number 3, the spirit assigned to inflict harm ended up venerating the divine essence within you. As your photograph graced that altar, an inexplicable shift occurred. They intended to summon power for your demise, but the energy in the room pivoted not toward destruction, but toward profound reverence. The summoned demon did not respond as anticipated. It did not erupt in rage, it did not attack, but it froze because it beheld more than just an image. It perceived a reflection of someone it recognized not from the terrestrial realm, but from the celestial council. They offered your photograph expecting subjugation but encountered confusion. The entity did not perceive a victim. It beheld a vessel consecrated to a power far exceeding their conjuring abilities. The presence radiating from your life triggered an ancient resonance and energy that hell avoids. What they summoned to inflict harm recoiled, not because it could not perceive you, but because it perceived too much of you. It recognized purity favor a light that transcends this world. That moment unveiled everything. Even the demon recognized it was being compelled to defy divine law, a transgression it dared not commit. Not out of righteousness, but out of a primal understanding of consequences. Spiritual boundaries exist even in the infernal realm. They mistakenly believe demons act with unrestrained freedom, but even evil respects genuine authority, and you, chosen one, emanate authentic authority. Even if you are unaware of the full scope of your calling, your spirit carries the weight of heaven's mandate. The reaction baffled them. The ritual fell silent. The room grew heavy, not with malevolent power, but with an aura of fear, because they glimpsed not weakness, but presence. The demon remained motionless, silent, and inactive, because harming you would constitute rebellion against the one you walk with. They anticipated spiritual vulnerability, exposure, and ease of influence, but encountered an impenetrable shield, a radiant light that repelled the darkness. It knew better than to proceed. It refused the assignment, a refusal that shook them more profoundly than any scream or assault could have, because they now understand that even the devil seeks to avoid conflict with you. Number 4. They were oblivious to the prophetic charge your image carried. They were ignorant of what they held when they grasped your photograph. To them it was mere paper and ink, but in the spiritual dimension it was a potent document infused with divine codes, ancestral promises, and prophetic directives. You are not simply striving to survive in this world. You are carrying something of profound significance from the archives of heaven. Your very existence is intertwined with a future event, a generational transformation, and a divine release. Your image transcends the symbolic. It is spiritually charged. When they employed your photograph in that ritual, they believed they were dealing with something ordinary, but in reality they laid their hands upon a prophetic blueprint. Similar to how an ancient sealed scroll could only be opened by legitimate authority, your image emanates a frequency that only God is authorized to unlock. By touching it with malicious intent, they triggered a spiritual backlash, not because of their identity, but because of your inherent destiny. There is a reason why some individuals experience sudden losses, disorientation, or chaos after attempting to harm you. It is not always the result of a counter-curse or retribution, but rather because judgment was automatically triggered the moment they interfered with sacred territory. Your life is on a timeline that must be fulfilled, and any attempt to disrupt it provokes an immediate response from the spiritual realm. Not because you are invincible through your own strength, but because God will not permit His word to return void. And you are an integral part of that word. Your physical appearance may seem ordinary, but in the spirit it serves as a marker of divine assignment. Your photograph contains more than just your image. It holds evidence of your calling. When they tried to use it to bind you, they unwittingly exposed themselves to the very forces they sought to manipulate. The spiritual realm is not swayed by rituals. It responds to authority, and in this instance, your authority dwarfed theirs. What they mistook for a target was a warning. Your image came with a divine alarm system. They believed they were gaining access, but they were breaking into something holy, a transgression heaven does not tolerate. Number 5. Your face in the spirit is wreathed in fire, not flesh. They perceived your face as mere skin, bone, and expression, something common, something human, but they failed to perceive the divine fire that engulfs your visage in the spirit, a fire ignited through trials, spiritual warfare, and encounters with the divine. This fire is not merely ornamental. It serves as protection, authority, and a warning. When they seized your photograph and attempted to use it in rituals, they wrongly believed they were dealing with someone vulnerable. But the fire surrounding you conveyed a different narrative. In the spiritual realm, you are not fragile or exposed. You are ablaze with the presence of God. Demons are not repelled by your physical attributes, but by the all-consuming fire that radiates from your being. Just as fire prevented Adam and Eve from re-entering Eden after the fall, the fire around you prevents darkness from encroaching upon your soul. They believed their spell would take hold. They believed it would land, but it did not simply fail. It combusted. As they began their chanting, as they opened that portal, as your image was placed on that altar, something exploded in the spirit, not because you retaliated physically, but because your fire burns perpetually. It does not await attacks. It does not rest, but remains active, alive, and consuming. This explains the instant backlash some of them experienced, the suffocating smoke, the subsequent illness, the unrelenting nightmares. They did not simply meddle with you. They meddled with holy fire. That fire does not require permission. It reacts, it corrects, it consumes lies, illusions, and demonic contracts instantly. They anticipated silence, but instead triggered a spiritual explosion. They were unaware that you walked as a living altar already ignited and guarded. Now they are terrified because they touched something they cannot extinguish. They attempted to curse you, but they were scorched because in the spirit you are not flesh. You are fire. Number 6. Their ritual not only failed but cursed them by association. When they seized your image and offered it to darkness, they engaged in a spiritual contract whether they comprehended it or not. Such contracts are binding in the spiritual realm with associated terms, demands, and consequences. The moment they invoked your name, your face, and your energy, they unwittingly agreed to pay a price for any outcome. When the outcome failed, as it inevitably would, the payment remained due. This is the aspect they never anticipated. They believed that if the ritual failed, it would simply vanish into thin air. But the spirit they summoned cared nothing for their emotions, intentions, or confusion. It sought results, a transaction, and when it could not reach you, it turned its gaze upon the next available, offering them. The moment your image was offered, a gateway was opened, and once a gateway opens in the spirit, it is not easily closed. These spirits are not motivated by friendship or loyalty, but by exchange, and their ultimate demand is blood. When the demon realized it could not touch you because of the spiritual protection surrounding your life, it still demanded compensation. That debt had to be paid, and it extracted payment from those who summoned it. Some of them are still trying to understand why their lives began to unravel after that night, why they suffer insomnia, why they see shadows in their homes, why their finances are collapsing. They attribute it to bad luck, bad timing, or blame each other. But their spirits recognize the truth. They tampered with something sacred. They attempted to harm someone who was spiritually impervious to harm. And now they bear the weight of a ritual that backfired into a curse. The curse did not originate from you. It came from the very darkness they trusted. Number 7. Even darkness adheres to protocol, and you are on the no-touch list. An established order exists in the spiritual realm. Not everything operates with unrestrained chaos. Even darkness adheres to rules, the foremost of which is recognizing spiritual authority. You, chosen one, are not walking through life unnoticed. In the unseen world, your presence is known, your energy is marked, and your name is on the no-touch list. You were flagged long ago, not because of perfection, but because of your calling. You were chosen to carry light, revelation, divine assignments, and generational freedom, placing you under a higher level of spiritual security. It is as if heaven erected a boundary line around you, proclaiming, "Approach with caution, highly protected asset." Not all individuals or spirits are permitted to cross it. Spiritual hierarchies exist that many enemies fail to understand. They wrongly believe that knowing a few spells, chanting a few phrases, or lighting a few candles renders them untouchable. But some spirits will not honor their requests because your spiritual rank is higher. Even in the kingdom of darkness, rank is paramount. Lower-level spirits do not engage with higher-level callings without permission. For you, permission was never granted. This explains why their attacks did not simply fail, but encountered resistance from unseen forces. Some remain confused. Why did their usual methods fail? It is because you are classified differently, spiritually unavailable for warfare in the way they expected. Your path is sealed by divine decree. You have endured trials that refined you, stripped you, and elevated your spiritual clearance, making interference forbidden. Even demons active for centuries know when to retreat, not out of fear, but out of protocol. They recognize God's presence. They understand the penalty for tampering with what heaven has consecrated. And you, whether you fully recognize it or not, walk daily under that protection. This is why they could not touch you, why they had to withdraw, because you were not merely another target, but off limits. Number 8, they believed they could silence you, but they amplified your voice. They foolishly thought they could hit you hard enough in the spirit to silence you, to mute your influence, to stifle your purpose, to silence the sound of your voice, because they perceived a threat in your voice. They were not merely attacking your life, but trying to erase your impact. But spiritual attacks do not silence a chosen one, they awaken them. They did not anticipate that pain would sharpen your discernment, that fire would clarify your vision. They underestimated the resilience of your soul, not to break, but to expand. The more they tried to dim your voice, the louder heaven made it. The more they tried to isolate you, the more connected you became to divine strategy. In the moment they thought they had stopped you, your true voice was born, not to please others, but to shake systems. Every spiritual attack pushed you deeper into prayer, clarity, and truth. You stopped second-guessing your gift and shrinking to make others comfortable. What emerged was not merely survival, but spiritual amplification. You became louder not with noise, but with authority. Now your words carry weight, cutting, awakening, and restoring. The very people who tried to destroy you are now forced to hear the voice they tried to silence, because your life became a testimony they cannot suppress. Your presence is louder than ever, amplified by heaven divine backing, holy fire, and prophetic thunder. They wanted your silence but created a stage for you. What they meant to bury became the pressure that launched you into your voice, amplified by heaven. Number 9. The demon mocked their ignorance, not yours. They entered that dark space feeling bold, confident, and certain. They believed their access to dark forces made them untouchable, and that their rituals, chants, and offerings made them spiritually superior. But the devil can recognize a fool. The moment they offered your photo, the demon laughed, not out of joy, but out of mockery. It knew this would not end well. The demon was never impressed. It saw ignorance, not strength. They thought they were handing over a picture, but they brought a problem. Demonic forces study these things, knowing who they can touch and who they must leave alone. They recognized your rank and saw it was a moment of tension. The demon did not laugh because it was excited, but because it saw fools playing with powers they could not control, opening doors they could not close. It knew that when this failed, payment would be demanded. They were confident in their connections to darkness, but did not ask if darkness respected them. That was the joke. The demon respected your spiritual covering more than their foolish attempt at control. It saw fire, shield, anointing, and heavenly backing. It laughed because this was a setup. Now they are confused, haunted, and exposed. With the demon long gone, the only thing left behind was that laugh, not at you, but at the ones who thought they knew what they were doing. Number 10. Your spirit interrupted the ritual before it even started. You were not in the room, didn't hear the chant, didn't see the setup, and didn't know what was happening. But your spirit was already on assignment because you walk in authority. You don't need to be there to shut something down. The moment your name was called, heaven alerted and your spirit responded. They thought time and space limited you, but chosen ones are not limited by the physical. Your presence is spiritually active even when you sleep, so when they brought your image, divine interference happened. The atmosphere shifted not because they summoned power, but because they awakened the wrong force. So, beloved, what we've uncovered here is a powerful truth. You are deeply valued, fiercely protected, and incredibly potent in the spiritual realm. Don't let anyone diminish that. The enemy may try to attack, but their efforts are ultimately futile and can even backfire because you carry a divine fire, a prophetic charge, and an anointing that even darkness must acknowledge. You are not simply surviving, you are thriving under the watchful eye of heaven. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Have you ever felt a similar sense of protection or divine intervention? Share your experiences or any questions you have in the comments below. Let's connect and learn from each other. And if this message resonated with you, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on future insights and empowering truths. Until next time. Keep shining your light, shining your light, shining your light, shining your light.